Welcome to another LCS Armchair GM session. We are going to be talking about Immortals this time, which right up front I can tell you, I don't know what to do with this org. It's very difficult, so let's see where we land. Let's see what we figure out and what we decide. Because, you know, some of these orgs I go in and I think, oh yeah, they've got this player is going to be a free agent, they've got that slot open, they have this many, you know, opportunities for imports, that player in the talent pipeline. I look at Immortals, I'm like, I don't know. So we're going to figure out where we land. And if you haven't watched one of these before, I have a bunch of them up on YouTube, so check those out. And maybe you're watching this on YouTube already, in which case just look through some of the other, through the playlist and find those other videos. I like to identify some goals for the org. What are we trying to achieve in this, you know, next year or next 2 or 3 years? Where are we, you know, where are we headed? What kind of resources or assets do we currently have? Players under contract, import slots, you know, players in our pipeline that are developing that we think we might be able to use next year or the year after, laying out all of that. And then what are like the big dominoes that need to fall, decisions we have to make or decisions that our players have to make about whether to sign with us or not, stuff like that, and how could those all affect things. So let's get started with looking at kind of our current assets, the way I like to look at it. So if we look at the contract list, we don't have any players on expiring contracts. Every single one of our players is signed through to the end of 2022. That's kind of weird. But that's what we have. So that's pretty interesting. Based on that, what do we think our goal is? We just finished, like, what, technically a 5th, 6th tie. So we kind of feel like we're like 2 steps away from getting to Worlds kind of thing. Like, first of all, we have to upgrade enough, whether it's with player development or roster changes or whatever it's going to be, that we can break into that kind of top 4 group. And then beyond that, develop enough to actually get top 3, go to Worlds, contend for a title kind of thing. Which of our players do we think are moving forward that could get us there next time? I think Xerxes obviously is our one import. I think he's pretty underrated. I think he's a strong jungler. If you look in the All-Pro voting, I think he had a lot of selections there. I think he had pretty minimal in-game resources to work with, in the sense of like players who could win their lanes and set him up well. And I think he did a lot of work to help his lanes compared to the amount of work that his lanes did to kind of help his life be easier. He's a player that, especially the relationship between him and Kyoto and of course Destiny, working with them before, I think we can continue with those two. And I think Xerxes is a good enough jungler that if the rest of the team is up to his level, you can go to Worlds in NA. I think so. So we're going to retain Xerxes. I mean, let's start from the top and go down a little bit. Revenge, I think he's coming along. And I think, so I just before this, I did the Dignitas session, and we looked at, like, you know, what's the top lane pool of potential free agents or like import targets, buyout targets. The top lane pool is really thin. Unless you're going to try to like go for the longer term option and hope that 100 Thieves want to sell Tenacity and you're willing to spend the money for that. I don't think Tenacity would be an upgrade on Revenge right now. Maybe in a couple of years from now he will be. So if we're an org that's looking for a longer term and we think Tenacity will outgrow Revenge a year or 2 years from now, maybe that would be an option. So, you know, I don't know. I'm seeing a note in the chat from Stargazing Spot that Kaiser has renewed his contract. So I will make an adjustment on that just by removing him from the free agents. So I appreciate that. Here, we can do this. Thank you for the update. This my contracts are a couple weeks out of date here. So given that the options at top lane are so thin and that Revenge is still, you know, a developing player, I would say, I think you move forward with him. So we're starting off with, look, Revenge and Xerxes are going to be, something we can move forward with. Insanity, similar kind of spot to Revenge of, he's got some experience now. I'm not convinced that either Revenge or Insanity are players right now good enough to get me to Worlds, but they're also not players that I feel pressured to replace. So Insanity is one where it's a little more difficult because the mid lane pool is deeper. I mean, some of these are not realistic, right? Like, we're not going to be able to get Chovy or Showmaker or Faker. We might be able to get Jizuke. He's a free agent. And of course, he's already in NA. I don't think Demonte would be an upgrade on Insanity. I think it's unlikely Gory will leave LCK. I don't think Nemesis, if he's looking for a return to pro play, he's probably looking to do it in the LEC. I don't think Firefire is an option for Academy that would maybe try to take the spot in time. But I don't really see, other than Jizuke, I don't really see inspiring options to replace Insanity. If you're going to replace Insanity and do it with something like signing Jizuke, like assuming that EG don't re-sign him before free agency hits, which if you go back and view the Armchair session that I did on EG, I think it's pretty likely Jizuke goes to market just because of all the circumstances of where they're at and what they have coming down the pipe. But if you are going to look at Insanity and say, we think we're going to sign Jizuke instead, you're not in a position right now, I think, where you drop Insanity back to Academy and say, hey, keep growing, we'll bring you back to LCS once you've earned it, kind of a thing, like like a Dignitas Soligo scenario. That's totally what they did with Soligo. Sort of, not really. I think Insanity either sticks with us right now or we're moving on entirely. And I think that's a tough choice. So one of the big keystone kind of decisions is Insanity our mid laner of the future? Or have we seen enough at this point and we think, hey, he's good enough to help us win some games right now and maybe get us into top 5, top 4, but we don't think he's going to be the mid laner that gets us to Worlds. That's the big choice. That is the first big choice that IMT need to make, I guess. So other options for mid lane then would be promoting Pretty, or the two most obvious, promote Pretty or sign Jizuke, or, buy out Power of Evil. So like, let's just, because I don't have a better spot in the spreadsheet for this, let's look at our 3 mid lane, or our mid lane options here. If we don't, of course, Power of Evil is an import, and so is Jizuke, up to the point that Power of Evil actually says he has a green card, which a lot of people are speculating about, but you never really know what's going to happen with those things. It's not really a predictable system. And, in case you've been looking at this, he's been here for a certain number of years, therefore he's going to get a green card. It doesn't work that way. A lot of people talk about the 4-year timeline, but that was an old system where the LCS rules were if an import plays in this region for 4 years, now they can declare residency in that region. That system is gone. The 4-year timeline doesn't mean anything anymore. But it is a thing that could happen. Immortals are, like, they have an import slot, right? Xerxes is the only import right now. Magical Kaz, thank you for the resub. Appreciate that. So, I think you could, if you do think Power of Evil is somebody you want, you could get him regardless of green card, as long as you're not looking to do an import in the bot lane or whatever. Personally, if I was going to replace Insanity, I would be looking to sign Jizuke. I think he and Xerxes could work pretty well together. So, like, let's do a scenario. Let's start painting in a couple scenarios. One where we keep Insanity, one where we sign Jizuke. And if I'm like debating between Jizuke and Power of Evil, well, A, Power of Evil is going to require a buyout. B, I think Jizuke is a better player, and he plays a style that is more compelling to me. So I'm not really looking at Power of Evil as an option, personally. Pretty, I think, might be an upgrade on Insanity a little bit, but not a super clear one. And he's not as good as Jizuke. So, you know, I think if we sign Jizuke, we're letting one of those mid laners go. We'll have to see kind of what they want to do and where we're at. Now, if we do go with Jizuke, of course, now we need a fully domestic bot lane, so we got to talk about our bot lane options. By the way, Viper and Revenge, I mean, there's a chance that the two of them are fighting for the spot this offseason. Viper, especially coming out of the spring split when he won Proving Grounds with no org, looked like, I would have said at that point probably that Viper is looking stronger than Revenge. It's a little bit hard to judge off of summer because obviously Immortals Academy, you know, Proving Grounds is starting later today, and maybe they'll make a good run then and that things will start to click. Immortals Academy has not been the strongest Academy team. I believe they finished 6th. And they've had some struggles. But I think, you know, the fact that he and Anda needed a few weeks to get into LA, and that set them back, and just, I mean, the overall roster construction of Immortals Academy, I think, has made it a little bit tough for him to shine as much as he maybe could. So I'm not ready to say, like, Viper's summer overwrites his spring or something like that. I think he's still a player that is fighting to get his way back into LCS and might be able to do it. So, you know, when I'm looking at Revenge as my kind of de facto starter, my incumbent player, but I'm also going to be looking at during the offseason, trying out some different iterations and scrims, seeing how they're both performing in solo queue, and saying this is not a lock. Both of them can be competing against one another. Perlini is asking whether I have some information that Jizuke wouldn't want to stay in EG because it seems like Peter Dunn is pleased with him. You can watch my EG Armchair session, and I think I talk about the mid lane scenarios for them quite a bit. I think it's likely that EG are going to be doing something different with Jizuke, and Jizuke is a free agent this offseason, and that EG are going to do some other option there. And so I think Jizuke will end up being available. So I think the Revenge Viper thing is not a huge deal, but I think they can compete for the spot a bit. So again, we're looking at our bot lane. Keith and Joey, neither of them has the potential to replace Raze or Destiny. So the question really is, do we move forward with Raze and Destiny? Like, do we run the whole thing back the exact same? No, I don't think you do. If you're going to keep Revenge, Xerxes, and Insanity, then you're going to make a change to your bot lane. You got to change something here. If we do Jizuke, well, there's our first big change. Do we think that Revenge, Xerxes, Jizuke, Raze, and Destiny is enough to get us, you know, move us our next step forward, like to a top 4 kind of finish and a stretch goal of going to Worlds? Maybe. I think Raze and Destiny would need to improve. And this is the thing. So it became a big meme, the all summer split, the prediction curse kind of a thing, which I started when I had some predictions go wrong early on. The whole split was really unpredictable, especially off the bat with all the roster changes going on, TL and CNI and all of that. And so I started memeing myself about how my predictions were a curse. Consistently the rest of the summer, my predictions were kind of like low 60% accuracy, but Immortals were the ones that constantly I predicted like everything wrong for them. Whenever I thought, okay, I see it there, they're going to win now, and then they would lose. And then I thought, no, these guys, they're terrible, they're never going to win. And then they would win games and beat teams that I thought they shouldn't beat. Raze and Destiny, I think, were the hardest players for me to read from that team. Destiny has had games where it's like, okay, this guy's, you know, there's something here, he's not bad. And other games are like, yeah, what's going on there? And then Raze would really underperform. And So I have a really hard time with this. Obviously, Destiny has the familiarity with Gyotto and with Xerxes. They played in LEC all together, and then they all came over into Immortals together. I think Destiny is the stronger piece of that bot lane to me, but I'm also not convinced that he's get me to Worlds support. And that does bring me back again to really not having established the goal here. I think we're taking one step closer to Worlds. So I like to look at this on the spectrum of, are we starting a 3-year plan of by the end of it we're good enough to go to Worlds, and we've got like no real resources right now? Are we kind of halfway through, or we just need, we think that with 1 or 2 of the right moves we're going to push ourselves into that Worlds competing zone, or are we in a position where we've got everything set up, this is the year, we're going to Worlds or bust? I think they're somewhere in that middle. I think they don't have momentum, but they don't have a talent pipeline at all right now, honestly. Their entire academy roster is veterans. He would technically be an LCS rookie because all of his experience is in ERLs. But, he's been playing a long time. This is not a talent pipeline kind of a piece. I know I included him in top prospects because of kind of that technicality of being a rookie to Worlds qualifying leagues. But yeah, it's a strange scenario. Viper and Anda are both veterans. Keith and Joey are veterans. Of all of these, I'd say Viper has the best shot of earning his way back into the LCS. Pretty maybe if they think that, we're not going to go for a big spend on a Jizuke or someone like that, and we think he might be an improvement on Insanity. I think that's an opportunity they can look at. But I think they don't really have a talent pipeline at all right now, and they need to start it. They need to find as many, like, if they could find 2 or 3 legit academy rookies for next year, they can. But I don't think I'm going to spend time speculating on that, because they have to just start. They have to start a talent development pipeline from scratch, realistically. With, like, maybe they keep Anda and Pretty or Anda and Joey and then fill out the rest with whatever they can find. Or Revenge and Viper still and let them keep fighting for it. And I don't know. I'm not going to spend a lot of time speculating on that, because I just don't think... I think we'd basically be saying who are the best amateur players available, how many of them can we get, and that's a large topic. Let's look at bot lane options that are available. So we haven't really gone through this yet, and we do have an import slot available unless we go with Jizuke. So we're going to look at both domestic and import. Domestically, Arrow is available. Presumably, that you can go to Wildcard and he's going to become a free agent, and maybe you can get to him first. We're going to call him a potential target for domestic bot laner. I'm not certain whether he'd be an upgrade on Raze. One of the things I'm going to be watching for in Proving Grounds starting later today, when Wildcard play, is do I think that Arrow, is Arrow a better option than which current LCS bot laners, or any of them? I'm not certain yet, but obviously he's got a ton of experience. The levels he's hit in the past are really high. He's been looking good in Proving Grounds so far, playing against not the strongest competition. But maybe, right? It's somebody that you talk about. Other than that, it's all a lot of imports. Karzi's not going to come. Kabe's not going to come. Patrick, it's silly that I can't quite make this connection instantly. He played with Astralis while Gyotto was there, right? With Origin. Am I wrong on that? Am I thinking of a different person? Deft, you're not going to get. Crown Shot, Neon Comp. I don't know. Obviously, Docdam is not realistic. Do you look at... So we can... Are any of these valid or relevant? Maybe Patrick for the Origin connection, or like Neon maybe. Are those? I think they're unlikely. Sorry, I should do that here. But they are options if you're going with Insanity, right? What would I feel better about? and let's say we kept Destiny, right? Would I feel better about Revenge, Xerxes, Insanity, Patrick, and Destiny, or Revenge, Xerxes, Jizuke, Arrow, and Destiny? I think I'd feel better about the Jizuke Arrow incarnation. Now, what other domestic bot lane options are there if we're not going to stick with Raze? Buying out King is one. On the import level, here, I'll just make a note here. These are pending free agents. Buyout target, and Luger's going to cost triple $signs. King is going to cost, I think, double $signs. I think C9 would be ready to talk a little bit more. I believe King would be an upgrade on Raze. Arrow, I'm not certain. Luger would be an upgrade. Luger's really good, but takes that import slot. So you'd be looking at like Revenge, Xerxes, Insanity, Luger, Destiny, or whatever. In terms of supports, I mean, we were talking about Dig before this. Aftermoo is a pending free agent. If he decides that he's going to move on from Dig, do we look at him? I think Aftermoo, possible upgrade on Destiny. I mean, probably. I feel pretty good about him. If we had Revenge, Xerxes, Jizuke, would Aftermoo want to play with that? Yeah, maybe. I think we might be able to bring him in. Depend who he's playing with in the bot lane. What if we had something like King and Aftermoo? What about that? Okay, so this is going to cost us decent contracts on Jizuke and Aftermoo and a big buyout on King, probably. There are a couple other buyout target supports, of course, which is Isles and Ayla. I don't think we can afford to buy out King and Isles or King and Ayla, but maybe we can. Maybe they're ready to spend. Like, what if we looked at something like Revenge, Xerxes, Jizuke, King, and Isles? We'll talk about Isles instead of Ayla because King and Isles are a duo with C9 Academy. Would we be able to afford that? That's going to cost us, 1.2 million or something like that. We'll hold the BB scenario, big buyouts. Where does Nemesis fit into all of this? I don't think he does. I think if we are using an import slot on a mid laner, we're going after Jizuke. Maybe we don't get him. I'm not convinced Nemesis would be interested in coming to the LCS to play for Dignitas, unless there's a really big home run scenario of the roster around him. But we'll call this the one big buyout, and this is the two big buyouts. I don't think it's an option to stay the course with the same starting five, which is why I'm not just filling that in on the thing here. Would you, so like, let's say, I want to look at also like there's free agents here. We'll call the Arrow. We'll put in the Arrow option as one. Say if it's Arrow and Destiny. We'll call it the Arrow and the Quiver label. I'll have a little bit of fun with the labels this time. What happened to Saligo? I don't know. You'll have to ask Dignitas to explain what happened to Saligo. I'm very curious, and I did the Dignitas session before this one on Twitch. Doing it right now live for those of you in chat and those of you watching on YouTube. You can look up the Dignitas VOD on the YouTube channel. So, Aldrina Orange asking, have I thought about or reached out or been reached out to work for an LCS team, it's something I've thought about. There are blockers to it in the realm of I'm not going to live in LA, and that's a really big blocker, and I think people kind of know that. And I think I've got I don't know. I know a lot of people in teams. I think a lot of people see me as a stats guy, and they just like, oh, we don't need a stats guy. And I've been a lot of my content this year. I'm trying to change that perception. A lot of the effort that I put in reviewing VODs and learning the game and so on. If people actually watch my content, they'll know that other than Run It, which is specifically a stats-oriented show, and that's what it's created for. I use stats in my actual analysis relatively little, more than a lot of people, because I have access to all this data that I collect, and I built so much time and infrastructure with it. But my actual game analysis is minimally statistical. But I think there are people in the scene who don't know me as closely who just associate me with that still, and that probably prevents certain speculation from taking place. Anyways, so what other scenarios are there? So this would be we're only using a one import slot. What about import supports? There are a bunch of those. Papa Smithy, hi stats guy, this is Hoodie Org guy. Yeah, there we go. Papa Smithy is the guy who designs all the hoodies himself, right? That's all anybody knows you for as well. Definitely. If we would still have an import slot here, how could we iterate on this? We could do Jizuke Arrow Destiny. I'm trying to think of like at least one more scenario that has insanity in it, where we maybe imported a support or something like that. We can do Jizuke Arrow in Destiny. Or I think we have options of support, right? Like this is really one where we've got a bunch of different iterations in a few situations. We have like Destiny, Aphromu, Isles. And Isles and Ayla are interchangeable. I'm using Isles because we were talking about King before and they kind of go together. I think an important factor in our decision making here is what's our buyout budget. Because there are pretty valid buyout targets in people like King, Isles, Ayla. But I do want to have at least one other insanity scenario where we import. What is a more likely position to import at? So again, I don't think Hillisang is likely at all to come to NA. Barrel is not. Landscale and effort, I don't think so. Is it me or some of these buyout numbers insane? I mean, they kind of are, but the market sets, whatever people are going to pay is what they're worth. And they like, maybe you could entice Treats to come back, but I think he's going to hope to have better offers in the LEC. Maybe a Limit or a Vander. Like we can have a scenario where we convince one of them, and let's say it's Treats because we're a little bit more familiar. So like, what if we did? And in case people are wondering about this, Arrow, I know that you're probably familiar with him as a Korean import bot laner, but he is a domestic NA player at this point. I believe I'm not sure if it's because he got a green card or if he was grandfathered in under the old 4-year rule. I don't know off the top of my head, but he's an NA resident. Okay, I'm being confirmed from the chat from people who would know that it is a green card. So regardless, though, he's an NA resident. So you could do potentially something like Revenge of Circe, Insanity, Arrow and Treats, or King and Treats, or whatever. The 4-year-old rule is very old. It's not in effect. There is no rule now. The only way you can change your residency in a region is by becoming a permanent resident of that region legally. So a green card in the U.S., I don't know what the equivalent would be in Europe or something like that, citizenship, or an equivalent, permanent residency kind of a thing. But it's been a 2 or 3 years now that 4 year of service rule was phased out. I don't know. I think these are some pretty reasonable scenarios. If we look at Revenge and Xerxes as our anchor, we look at either Insanity or Jizuke as our mid lane options. Of course, we might decide that we are moving on from Insanity and then we're unable to sign Jizuke. So what would we do then? I mean, maybe we are talking to Nemesis and making an offer. Maybe we're talking to Demonte or even Pole Belter, kind of going down the list here. But a lot of these other options, I think, are pretty out there in likelihood. I mean, obviously, the non-colored names on my list are the ones that... The purple ones are like notable imports. Blue ones are notable residents. I mean, maybe they're doing something like, hey, Magifelix, we think you might be able to, you know, find your momentum back here, or, you know, or a nuke deck or whatever. Going to the LCK and talking to Dove, like, these are things that could happen. I just think they're not priority options. So outside of Jizuke, I'm not really sure where you go between those two, or Pretty, like we talked about. Yeah, and you could talk to people in the ERLs. I'm not super familiar with those players, so I'm sure they'll be doing their due diligence on those options. Of course, with Gyota coming out of the European kind of experience, he'll be scouting that a lot. So I think actually our buyout budget is a bigger influence on our decision making than whether or not we're going to stick with Insanity. If we can buy out King and Isles together, or if we can buy out King and sign Aphromoo or something like that, if we have enough money for that, that changes whether or not we think using the import slot for Jizuke mid is worthwhile. My take is that if I can bring in Jizuke, I personally am ready to say Insanity is good enough to get me top 6, but I don't think he's going to bring me to Worlds. That's where I'm at. So if I can get Jizuke and still build a roster with him that gets me to Worlds next year, like, I think a Revenge Xerxes Jizuke King Isles team, it's a bit of a stretch goal. I think it'd be better than what I fielded this year, and I think it would give me a chance to finish top 3. I don't think I would feel super confident in getting there, but I think it would give me a chance, and I think Isles as a piece that, you know, can last me longer. The thing is, no matter which of the scenarios you go for, they need to start a talent pipeline up. They need to find a way. They can't just say it's not doable, which is kind of the approach that I got this year from them. Like, we don't have access to these rookies that the other orgs are getting access to, so we're going to go full veteran. And like for summer, they went even more veteran than they went in spring. They brought in Viper and Anda after they won Proving Grounds. I think they got to do better than that. Because otherwise you're going to be stuck looking at, hey, we want to have a young player like Isles and have him come in and be a 3-year project piece with us. And you're going to pay for it. So either you pay to put in the effort with staffing and academy and so on, or you pay what I think is going to be a lot more money to get a buyout for that player in the future. So, I think this is actually kind of sub-goal A. And it's not building a talent. I had this as a leftover from doing Dignitas, is building momentum in your talent pipeline, because Dignitas have some stuff going on here. Immortals don't have that. This is start a talent pipeline. I think this is sub-goal A. You've got to start building the future of your org. Otherwise, you're stuck looking at scenarios where you're getting fleeced on buyouts and just having to swallow it. But I think these scenarios we've laid out are kind of reasonable. I think we can look at like a Revenge Xerxes Jizuke King Isles, or a Revenge Jizuke Arrow, Destiny Isles, Treats, or not Treats, sorry, but like Treats is only an option if you keep Insanity. I think you can look at that and say this gets us closer to Worlds than we were in 2021. And by the end of 2022, you're then ready to either look at some of these players and make the next incremental upgrade on them. Whether that's Revenge, who you find out whether... I think 2022 is the make-or-break year for Revenge, that he has to level up from this year that much more and show that he's a piece that can get a team to Worlds, or it'll be time to find another option there. I think Insanity will be in the same boat if they retain him to next year. I think Destiny as well. All of these players, like... This year was not a clear enough decider. I'm looking at all these scenarios, and I'm looking at, like, I don't see Raze being with the team next year because I think, Arrow or King or a ton of money for Luger would be better options. And just like, I wasn't sure coming in, each of these players, like, other than Xerxes, all of these players I think are in a position where I'm not super confident in them as a piece to get me to Worlds, but I'm also like, yeah, but there might be enough there for them to grow into. And Raze is very much in that situation for me, but the bot lane market is much stronger than the top lane market, which is why, like, and to some extent mid lane is not a super deep market for the buyers of mid laners, but there's more there than there is in top lane, or in support for that matter, with a lot of imports in the market, and not all of them are going to find a spot, right? When we talk about Vander, Limit, Treats, maybe they're not all going to find a spot in the LEC. So I think you're going to have some options at support, and if you do some tryouts and so on, maybe you'll land on something. Wino Niles in the list of top laners. I don't think he's a better option than Revenge. Maybe if Golden Guardians let him go, you bring him in for Academy and give him a chance. But Golden Guardians have him under contract, and there's not a real reason to think that Golden Guardians are giving up on Niles and going to let him go. I think Golden Guardians will probably keep him in Academy. Or yeah, I mean, he's got Licorice ahead of him, so I don't think they're going to re-promote him, but... So, yeah. Isn't there a caveat to my assumptions that I don't consider players that get dropped from a team as new players? That's part of what makes this difficult, is that I'm armchair GMing for a single team, not all 10 at once. And so if we say something like Power of Evil is an example of this, I expect Power of Evil to be available out of TSM, but under a buyout. And it's hard to keep track of all those players. I could have a separate list, and maybe I should take some time and make a list of players I expect to become available, like Power of Evil, like, I don't know, what's another example off the top of my head that'll likely be put up for buyout. I mean, some of these I am mostly out of Academy, King, Isles, Ayla. I expect to be buyout options, but it's difficult to keep track of all that. And of course, this is something that really influences in the real world, because other teams will come to you and say, are you interested in this player? We're willing to sell their contract. So, but yeah, I mean, Tap2GG, thank you for gifting a sub to OPTSM fan. Yeah, all these scenarios, like, I don't want to say that there's not a world where Raze is not with Immortals next year, but I think that I might decide. I put an Arrow here, but I really wasn't that confident that Arrow is an upgrade option. But I put him in here. So I should probably correct this to Raze or Arrow as kind of domestic under contract or free agent. So not a buyout options. So I think those are possibilities here. I think that's probably a little more realistic to put. But yeah. I think you have a similar kind of question on Raze as you do on Insanity. And I think I think when I look at all the options here, you're going to change one of these, or both, to try to move yourselves forward. And it's easier to make a change at mid, but I think there are options for bot lane as well. So, those are some scenarios. I think that's That's you know, a bunch of different directions you can go. Do you use your import slot mid or bot? I think are the two options. Or, I mean, mid or support. I think using an import slot in bot lane, the only way you're likely to do that is if you pay a huge amount of money for Luger, and it means that you're keeping Insanity or promoting Pretty. Well, let's paint out that scenario for completeness here. Just as another alternative, right? If you did Pretty, you did Luger, and now you need a resident bot. And you went with, I mean, let's say you kept Destiny, or you bought out, I don't know, buy out Poom. Why not? Let's go all out. Luger and Poom together. Two different big buyouts. Two pretty big buyouts. They'll call it that one. That one's fun. Because it's pretty. Yeah, so I can see different iterations. I think mid, bot, and support could all go a lot of different directions for Immortals, but I think they're pretty locked into running with Revenge and Xerxes next year, unless Viper steals the spot. Okay. OPTSM fan changed his name to Shonatonin. I like it. I like it a lot. It's cute. It's wordplay-ish. So. In an academy, again, like, I don't know. You're going to go scour the amateur scene and see who you can convince to be the start of your pipeline. Get a top laner and a jungler who you can convince, like, I mean, maybe you're going to be running with Viper and Anda still. Find a bot lane that you think is going to have a chance to grow into longer term options. You've got a good academy coach, right? I think Jensen Go is a good coach from my knowledge of him in conversations with him. And so maybe you can use that to help convince the players to come into your talent pipeline rather than other ones. But get something going there, and I'm not going to speculate on which players too much. But yeah, no, I think Immortals have enough pieces that they can put themselves into that top 4 conversation if they do a good job in the offseason. I also think that they're going to have to pony up on the buyouts if they want to do it. So hopefully they've got the budget. And hopefully they can make that work and move their org another step forward. But yeah, what it's going to take is a big buyout budget, probably, and a lot of work getting that pipeline started, because you need some talent scouts, and you can't just phone in your academy team. And unfortunately, I've kind of felt like their roster building on the academy side was phoned in this year, which feels bad to say, but that's just the perspective I have on it from the outside, right? From the inside, I don't know. They might have a very different perspective on it, and they could speak to that themselves and with their own take and speak with their actions in this offseason. Well, those are my takes on Immortals as the armchair GM of them. Really looking forward to see what they do, and we'll all find out together. So thanks for watching, and again, I've done these sessions now on several of the teams in LCS, so check out the YouTube channel and scroll through those to find out if I've talked about another team that you're interested in. We'll see how they all interact and maybe circle back on it as more dominoes start to fall in actual rumors and leaks and moves taking place and green cards coming through and all that kind of fun stuff. So we'll see. Thanks for watching.